Rebirth and Samsara in Buddhism. Why rebirth is not reincarnation. A new perspective on life and death. What happens when we die? Is there life after death? These profound questions have fascinated humanity for thousands of years. Many spiritual traditions suggest the idea of an eternal soul, a fixed essence that moves from one life to another. However, Buddhism offers a radically different perspective. Unlike reincarnation, which implies a soul that transmigrates through different lifetimes, Buddhism speaks of rebirth, a continuous process driven by cause and effect. Without a fixed self that carries over, this distinction changes everything. If there is no unchanging I that moves between lives, then what exactly is being reborn? And what does this mean for how we live our lives today? In this article, we will explore the Buddhist concept of rebirth, how it differs from reincarnation, and what it reveals about the nature of existence. We will delve into the mechanics of karma, the principle of dependent origination, and real-life accounts that help illuminate these teachings. By the end, you may find yourself looking at life and death with a completely new understanding. Chapter 1. Dependent Origination, the Web of Cause and Effect. At the core of Buddhist rebirth is the doctrine of dependent origination, paticcasamuppada, a profound insight that reveals how everything arises due to specific conditions and ceases when those conditions change. Nothing exists independently. All phenomena are interconnected in an intricate web of cause and effect. Imagine a spider web, where every thread is linked to the others. If you pull one thread, the entire web vibrates. In the same way, our lives are not isolated events but a vast network of experiences shaped by past actions, thoughts, and intentions. A simple decision, such as speaking kindly to someone, can set off a ripple effect that influences countless interactions. Conversely, a moment of anger can trigger a chain reaction, leading to further suffering. Another example is the way habits shape our lives. If a person constantly reacts to difficulties with frustration, over time, this response becomes ingrained, leading to a habitual pattern of suffering. On the other hand, if one cultivates patience and mindfulness, they gradually reshape their reactions, leading to greater peace and clarity. These are not random occurrences but the natural unfolding of cause and effect. The illusion of a fixed self. A common misunderstanding arises when people assume there is an unchanging self experiencing these events, some permanent I that moves through time. Buddhism challenges this idea with the teaching of anatta, non-self, which explains that what we call me is nothing more than a dynamic flow of consciousness, a shifting combination of thoughts, emotions, perceptions, and habitual tendencies. Consider a river. It may look the same day after day, but the water is constantly flowing, never the same from one moment to the next. Our consciousness is like that river, a continuous stream shaped by past karma, constantly changing, yet giving the illusion of stability. Or think of a candle flame. If you light a candle from another candle, is it the same flame or a new one? The fire is neither identical nor entirely separate, it exists in a state of continuous transformation. Similarly, we are not the same person we were 10 years ago, nor are we entirely different. The elements of our consciousness, our tendencies, thoughts, and emotions, arise, evolve, and dissolve, just like the flickering flame. A new way of seeing ourselves. This perspective can be unsettling at first. We are conditioned to believe in a stable, enduring identity. But understanding dependent origination in non-self does not mean we don't exist. It means we exist in a dynamic, interconnected way. We are not isolated beings moving through the world. We are the world, constantly shaped by it while also shaping it in return. When we deeply realize this, our attachment to rigid identities softens. We begin to see that our struggles, fears, and even joys are part of a larger unfolding process. Instead of clinging to an illusion of permanence, we can embrace life's fluid nature with wisdom and compassion. And if everything is interconnected, then every action matters. Our choices, however small, become seeds that shape the future. In this way, the teaching of dependent origination is not just a philosophical idea, it is a profound invitation to live with awareness and responsibility. Chapter 2. Karma and its role in rebirth. One of the most misunderstood concepts in Buddhism is karma. Many people think of it as a system of rewards and punishments. If you do something good, Good things will happen to you. If you do something bad, you'll suffer. But in reality, karma is much more profound than a simple moral scoreboard. In Buddhism, karma is simply the law of cause and effect. Every action, word, and thought plants a seed that influences our future experiences. It's not controlled by an external force, nor does it function like fate. Instead, it is a natural unfolding of consequences based on the choices we make. Just like how dropping a stone into water creates ripples. The garden of our actions. Imagine your actions as seeds. If you plant seeds of kindness, patience, and generosity, you cultivate a garden of peace and happiness. On the other hand, if you sow seeds of anger, greed, and ignorance, your life will be filled with suffering and conflict. But here's the key: just because you planted bad seeds in the past doesn't mean you're doomed to a life of misery. You can always choose to plant different seeds today. Think about a farmer who realizes that his land is filled with weeds due to past neglect. Instead of complaining or giving up, he starts planting healthy crops, removing the weeds little by little. Over time, his field transforms. Similarly, karma is not a prison sentence, it's an invitation to take responsibility for our future. The story of Arun, changing one's karma. Let's consider a real-life example. Arun was a man full of negativity. He constantly complained, held grudges, and was quick to criticize others. His relationships suffered, his career stagnated, and he often felt alone and frustrated. To Arun, life seemed unfair. Why did bad things always happen to him? One day, he encountered Buddhist teachings on karma and mindfulness. Something clicked. He realized that his suffering wasn't just caused by external events. It was deeply connected to his own habits of thought and behavior. Slowly, he started making small changes. Instead of reacting with anger, he practiced patience. Instead of speaking badly about others, he made an effort to say kind words. Instead of being self-centered, he began helping others without expecting anything in return. At first, nothing seemed different, but over time, something amazing happened. His relationships improved. His mind felt lighter. He began to attract positive opportunities. Aaron's life changed, not because of luck or some external force, but because he had actively created new karma. Rebirth is not about changing bodies, it's about evolving through choices. Many people think rebirth means a soul moving from one body to another. But Buddhism teaches that there is no fixed self to transfer. Instead, what continues is a flow of causes and effects, just like how a flame from one candle lights another, but is not the same flame. Think of it this way: if you go to sleep angry, you wake up in a bad mood the next morning. If you go to sleep feeling peaceful, you wake up refreshed. This is a small example of how rebirth happens every day. Our current actions shape our future experiences, whether in this life or the next. How this applies to our daily lives. Understanding karma and rebirth isn't just about future lives, it's about how we live right now. Every thought, word, and action is shaping who we become. We don't need to wait for another lifetime to change. If you've been holding on to anger, ask yourself, is this helping me? If you want more kindness in your life, start by being kind to others. If you feel stuck in bad habits, know that you can choose differently, starting today. Karma is not a burden, it's a gift of freedom. It reminds us that no matter our past, we can always create a new path forward. So, what seeds will you plant today? Chapter 3. The difference between rebirth and reincarnation. One of the biggest misconceptions about Buddhist rebirth is that it is the same as reincarnation. While they might seem similar at first glance, they are based on very different understandings of self and existence. The traditional view of reincarnation, in Hinduism and many other traditions, reincarnation is based on the idea that there is a permanent soul, Atman, that migrates from one body to another. Life after life, this soul carries its past experiences and karma, moving through cycles of birth and death until it achieves liberation, moksha, a state where the soul merges with the divine. This idea isn't unique to Hinduism. Many ancient Greek philosophers, including Plato, spoke of a soul that exists before birth, learns through multiple lifetimes, and eventually reaches purity. Even in some Western spiritual traditions, reincarnation is seen as a way for the soul to grow and evolve through different experiences. The Buddhist view, no soul, just a process, Buddhism completely rejects the idea of an eternal, unchanging soul. Instead, it teaches that what continues from life to life is not a fixed entity, but a dynamic process, a stream of causes and effects. Think of it like this. Imagine lighting one candle with another. The flame continues, but it is not the same flame from the first candle. Or think about a river, it flows continuously, but the water at any given point is never the same. This is how Buddhist rebirth works. There is no unchanging self that moves between lives. What carries forward is a flow of karma, our tendencies, actions, and habits, shaping the next experience, but without a permanent I behind it. A thought experiment. Who were you 10 years ago? Think about yourself 10 years ago. Are you the same person? In some ways, yes, you have memories, experiences, and a body that has aged over time. But in another sense, every part of you has changed. Your thoughts and beliefs are probably different. Your body has replaced almost all of its cells. Even your personality may have shifted. So, are you the same person? Or a different one? The answer is both and neither. There is continuity, but no fixed, unchanging self. This is the same logic that Buddhism applies to rebirth. What does this mean for us? This understanding of rebirth challenges how we see ourselves. If we are not fixed entities, then we are free to change. Every moment, every action, and every thought is shaping our future, not just in the next life, but even in this one. For example, if you practice patience today, you are training yourself to become a more patient person in the future. If you cultivate anger, that habit grows stronger and influences how you experience the world. In this way, rebirth is not just about what happens after we die. It is something we experience every moment. We are constantly being reborn through our choices, breaking free from the cycle. In reincarnation-based traditions, the goal is to reunite with the divine. But in Buddhism, the ultimate aim is nirvana, the end of craving, suffering, and the cycle of rebirth itself. By deeply understanding that there is no fixed I, we loosen our attachments to ego, desires, and fears. This leads to freedom, not just after death, but in this very life. So, the real question isn't, what happens after I die? But rather, how am I living right now? Because in every moment, we are shaping what comes next. Chapter 4. The process of death and rebirth. Death is one of the greatest mysteries of human existence. What happens when we take our last breath? Is it the end, or is there something beyond? In Buddhism, death is not seen as a final stop but rather as a transition, a shift in the flow of consciousness shaped by past karma. The moment of death, a continuation, not an end. When a person dies, the final moment of consciousness, kuti sata, ceases. And immediately after, a new consciousness, patisandhi sata, or relinking consciousness, arises. This new state is determined by past karma, influencing where and how rebirth occurs. If a person has cultivated kindness and wisdom, their next existence may be favorable, perhaps in the human realm or even higher states of meditative absorption. If their life was filled with greed, hatred, or ignorance, their rebirth may lead to less fortunate conditions, such as the animal realm or other realms of suffering. This is not about punishment or reward, it's simply cause and effect unfolding naturally. Just like how planting a mango seed will grow a mango tree, not an apple tree. A story of past lives. The monk who remembered. There was once a well-respected Buddhist monk who had cultivated deep meditative concentration. One day, during a profound state of meditation, he began to recall his past lives. In one lifetime, he saw himself as a brave but ruthless warrior, driven by conquest and glory. In another, he was a scholar, deeply immersed in philosophy but blind to the suffering of those around him. In yet another, he had been a poor farmer, living a simple yet content life. Each of these experiences felt real, yet none of them belonged to a single, permanent self. They were all different expressions of karma unfolding, like waves in an ocean, always shifting but never separate from the whole. What this means for us. The idea that we are reborn not as a fixed soul, but as an ongoing process has deep implications. 1. There is no fixed destiny, only consequences. Our next existence is shaped by our present thoughts, actions, and intentions. We are not bound by our past. We can actively change our future by how we live now. 2. Rebirth is happening even within this life. Oh, we are not the same person we were 5 years ago. Or even yesterday. Oh, our thoughts, habits, and experiences continuously shape who we become. 3. The fear of death lessens. Oh, death is not a disappearance but a transition, like moving from one dream to another. Oh, what matters is how we cultivate wisdom and compassion now. A candle, not a soul. A common question is, if there is no soul, what continues? Buddhism answers with an analogy. Imagine lighting a candle with another candle. The second flame continues, but it is not the same as the first, nor is it entirely separate. This is how rebirth works, not a fixed, moving from body to body, but a continuity of cause and effect. Just like the wind carries the scent of a flower without being the flower itself. Karma carries forward without a soul. How this understanding can transform us. If rebirth is shaped by our actions, then every moment is an opportunity to create a better future. A kind word spoken today plants seeds of peace. A moment of patience prevents suffering down the line. A choice to be mindful strengthens our awareness for lifetimes to come. So instead of fearing what happens after death, perhaps the real question is, right finger, how can we live in a way that makes each rebirth, each moment, more meaningful? Chapter 5. The Realms of Rebirth. Buddhism describes a vast and intricate cosmology of rebirth, often visualized as a wheel of existence, samsara. Within this cycle, beings are born into different realms based on their karma. But these realms are not just distant, supernatural places. They also reflect our states of mind in everyday life. Let's explore these realms and see how they apply not only to rebirth but also to our experiences right now. The 3 major realms of existence. 1. The realm of desire, kamadhatu, the world of attachment. This is the realm where most beings reside, including humans, a rare and precious existence where both suffering and wisdom can lead to enlightenment. Animals, driven by instinct, ignorance, and survival needs. Hungry ghosts, nakai, beings of insatiable craving, constantly longing for satisfaction but never finding it. Hell beings, experiencing immense suffering, often due to past extreme hatred and violence. What this means in daily life. Even within a single lifetime, we cycle through these states. When overwhelmed by greed and addiction, we experience the suffering of hungry ghosts, constantly consuming but never satisfied. When consumed by rage and hatred, we live in a personal hell, full of torment. When acting on impulse without wisdom, we resemble animals, driven by basic survival without higher awareness. When living mindfully and ethically, we make the most of the human realm, where self-awareness and choice can shape our future. Example: someone who hoards wealth but is never happy may already be living as a hungry ghost. Someone who lashes out in anger every day may be experiencing hell long before death. 2. The realm of form, rupadhatu, the world of higher consciousness. This is the domain of beings who have transcended worldly desires through deep meditation, dhyana. Here, existence is more refined, free from crude suffering and greed, but still within the cycle of rebirth. Who lives here? Advanced spiritual beings, often described as celestial gods or enlightened meditators. How does one enter this state? By developing higher states of mental clarity, concentration, and inner peace through meditation. What this means in daily life. Have you ever experienced deep peace while meditating, reading, or simply sitting in nature? Have you ever been so focused that your mind felt effortlessly calm and clear? These moments give us a taste of the form realm, a state beyond ordinary human existence, where inner tranquility replaces external desires. Example: a monk who spends years in deep meditation, experiencing profound peace, is already living in this realm, even while still physically in the human world. 3. The formless realm, arupadhatu, the realm of pure consciousness. Beyond even the form realm, there exists a state where there is no body, no physical form, only pure awareness. These states are reached through the deepest levels of meditative absorption, where even the sense of self dissolves into pure experience. What exists here? Only consciousness, without any material form. How does one enter this state? By cultivating deep states of meditation that go beyond physical sensation and conceptual thought. What this means in daily life. Have you ever felt completely detached from external distractions? As if time and space dissolved? Have you ever lost yourself in a creative flow, where there was only the experience itself? No, you, doing it? These are glimpses of the formless realm, where awareness exists in its purest form. Example: a highly advanced meditator who enters a state of deep, thought-free awareness has momentarily touched this realm. Are these realms literal or metaphorical? Many people ask, are these realms real places, or just psychological states? In Buddhist cosmology, they are described as both. On one level, these are literal planes of existence where beings are reborn based on their karma. On another level, they are states of mind that we move through even within a single day. The key takeaway: you are already moving between realms. Understanding these realms isn't just about what happens after death, it's about recognizing them within ourselves right now. When you are consumed by anger, you are in hell. When you are lost in desire, you are a hungry ghost. When you cultivate peace and wisdom, you are entering the higher realms. So, the question is, which realm are you living in today? And how can you elevate your existence moment by moment, choice by choice? Chapter 6. Overcoming the fear of death. Death is one of the greatest fears of humanity. We spend our lives trying to avoid it, yet it is the one certainty we all share. But what if death is not the end? What if it is merely a transition, a continuation of the flow of existence rather than a final stop? Buddhism teaches that understanding death deeply is the key to living without fear. When we see that life and death are just different points in an endless stream of causes and effects, we no longer cling to the illusion of permanence. Instead, we embrace life with greater clarity, presence, and peace. Death is not the end, it's a transition. Most of our fear of death comes from attachment to the self. We believe in a solid, unchanging I that will one day disappear forever. But Buddhism reveals that this I is an illusion. What we call self is actually a constantly changing flow of thoughts, emotions, and experiences. Think of a wave in the ocean. It rises, it falls, it disappears, but has the water gone anywhere? No, the water simply takes a new form. When a candle's flame is passed to another candle, is it the same flame? When a river flows, is it the same river moment to moment? In the same way, death is not an absolute end. The stream of consciousness continues, shaped by karma, taking new forms in ways beyond our current understanding. The story of the king and the monk. Once, a great king was deeply afraid of death. No matter how much wealth, power, or wisdom he possessed, he could not escape his fear of the inevitable. One day, he visited a wise Buddhist monk and pleaded, "Tell me how I can conquer my fear of death." The monk said nothing at first. Instead, he took a candle and lit it. Then, with a single breath, he blew out the flame. The king gasped, but the monk immediately used another candle to reignite the first one. Then, he turned to the king and asked, "Is this the same flame as before?" The king hesitated. The flame looked the same, but he knew it wasn't exactly the original. Seeing his confusion, the monk smiled and said, "This is exactly what happens at death. The light continues, but it is not exactly the same flame. What you call I is not fixed, it is only a stream of energy, shaped by karma. When you let go of attachment to this illusion, you let go of fear." The king sat in silence, contemplating the truth of these words. From that moment on, he no longer feared death, for he understood that life is not something we own, it is something that flows. How to overcome fear of death in everyday life. Even if we intellectually understand that death is a transition, fear may still linger. Here are some Buddhist practices to train the mind to let go of fear and approach death with peace. 1. Meditation on impermanence. One of the most powerful ways to overcome the fear of death is to reflect on impermanence daily. Observe how everything changes, your body, thoughts, relationships, emotions. See that nothing ever remains the same, yet life continues effortlessly. Recognizing this in small ways makes it easier to accept larger changes, including death. Example: the next time you see a flower bloom and fade, remind yourself, life is beautiful because it changes. 2. Letting go of ego and attachment. The more we cling to self, the more we fear losing it. Instead of focusing on, what will happen to me? Focus on, how can I live wisely and compassionately now? Shift attention from preserving identity to creating meaning through kindness and awareness. Example: someone who defines their whole existence by wealth, youth, or status will struggle with impermanence. But someone who cultivates wisdom and compassion finds peace, knowing these qualities transcend individual identity. 3. Experiencing mini-deaths in daily life. Death is just the ultimate form of change, but change happens every moment. Every night, when we sleep, our conscious identity dies for a while. Every time we let go of a grudge, an old version of us dies. Every moment, our body is replacing cells. Our mind is evolving, and we are no longer who we were yesterday. Example: if you have ever gone through a major life transition, losing a job, moving to a new place, ending a relationship, you have already experienced death in small ways. But life continued, and so did you. The ultimate realization: death is not the opposite of life. Most people see life and death as opposites. But from a Buddhist perspective, death is simply part of the cycle of existence. Instead of asking, "What happens after I die?" perhaps the more important question is, "How can I live fully and meaningfully right now?" When we stop fearing the future, we can finally embrace the present. And in doing so, we discover a deep truth. The best way to prepare for death is to truly live. Conclusion: living with mindfulness and meaning. Throughout this journey of exploring rebirth, karma, and the nature of existence, we have uncovered a profound truth. Buddhism is not about preparing for the next life, but about living fully in this one. Many people worry about where they will go after death. But the deeper question is not, "What happens after I die?" Instead, the real question is, "How am I living right now?" If we truly understand karma, that every thought, word, and action shapes our experience, then we realize that our happiness or suffering is not determined by fate, but by how we live each moment. Liberation is here and now. Many imagine enlightenment as something far away, something that requires lifetimes of effort. But Buddhism teaches that liberation is not in some distant future, it is found in each moment of mindfulness. Every time you pause before reacting in anger, you are breaking the cycle of suffering. Every moment you choose compassion over selfishness, you are creating a path to inner peace. Every time you are fully present, without being lost in the past or future, you are free, even if just for a second. This is the real meaning of nirvana, not an escape from life, but a way of living where we are no longer trapped by craving, fear, and illusion. A shift in perspective. Instead of seeing rebirth as something that happens after death, what if we see it as something happening right now? Every morning, we wake up as a new version of ourselves. Every choice we make shapes who we will become in the future. Every moment of mindfulness is a chance to start fresh. Buddhism doesn't ask us to believe in rebirth blindly. It invites us to observe change within our own lives. When we do, we see that the cycle of rebirth is not just a cosmic process but an everyday reality. The power of mindful living. If we embrace this wisdom, our priorities shift. Instead of chasing future happiness, we find peace in the present moment. Instead of fearing death, we focus on how we are living right now. Instead of waiting for a better life, we create a meaningful life today. This is the true path to freedom. So, rather than asking, "What happens after I die?" perhaps the most important question is, "How can I live with wisdom and compassion, right here, right now?"